we ready? Ready, Sean? Okay. Ready? All right. Let's call our meeting to order. Tuesday, June 9th, 2020. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And would you please like to lead us in the pledge?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Rodrigo.
Here.
Here.
Councilmember Duncan.
Here.
Mayor Clark-Retz.
Here. Before we go on, I want to talk about the public comment procedure tonight. In order to protect public health and the safety of our Loomis citizens, public access for this meeting will be offered through the town's YouTube channel located at https://www.youtube.com/UCY800. The meeting will also be available through the Zoom platform by clicking the following link, https://us02web.zoom.us. These links are also available on our agenda. Or you can call 1-669-900-9128. The meeting ID is 884-1740-6272. The council meeting at the depot will be closed to public attendance. Public comment will be open for each agenda item through the following means. Like I talked about. Number one, by commenting on the YouTube live stream. Number two, actually, you can email cricketstrock@cstrock@loomis.ca.gov. Or three, via Zoom by computer. You must have a microphone-enabled computer, or you can use your computer in tandem with your cell phone by calling into the phone number above. Be prepared to comment on the specific agenda item you wish to comment when the mayor announces the item. You'll have 3 minutes to comment per agenda item. And also want to let you know we are going to take a little bit of extra time so that we make sure that if you wanted to make public comment that we'll be able to see you doing that. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do this evening is we have a presentation by Dr. Amy Sisson. She's our Placer County Health Officer on COVID-19.
Dr. Sisson, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can see you as well. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you for the opportunity to present to your town council tonight. And I want to apologize that my first introduction to you is in the middle of this pandemic. I've only been Placer County's health officer and public health director since the end of October. So this means I was only on the job for about 3 months before coronavirus took over my life and subsequently took over all of your lives as well. But it's nice to finally have an opportunity to virtually meet you. And I was invited tonight to provide an overall update on the coronavirus outbreak in Placer County, as well as to talk about the recent increases in confirmed cases and the county's contact tracing efforts. So let me start by discussing tests, cases, and hospitalizations. Countywide, testing volume has averaged 287 tests daily over the last 2 weeks, compared to an average of 255 daily tests in the previous 2-week period. Tests are being offered by healthcare providers as well as 2 testing sites run by OptumServe in collaboration with the state of California. So the South Placer OptumServe site, which is closest to Loomis, has moved from Roseville to the Placer County Library in Rockland as of yesterday. That site can collect specimens on up to 132 people each day. Testing is free, and anyone can be tested regardless of whether they have symptoms or not. And you can make an appointment online or by telephone. While testing data is important to track, so too is the rate of positivity. As more people are tested, the number of cases identified will increase. So we need a way to tell if cases are going up because disease is spreading or simply because we're doing more tests. So we use something called the testing positivity rate to tell the difference between these two scenarios. And the testing positivity is calculated as the number of positive tests divided by the total number of tests. And an increase in test positivity means that positive tests are increasing faster than all tests, and it indicates that the burden of disease is increasing. So over the last 2 weeks, Placer County's 7-day testing positivity rate has increased from 1% to 3%. And on June 3rd, the daily testing positivity rate was actually 6%. And that is the most recent day for which complete data are available. So sorry, I'm having some technical issues. All right, so let's move to talking about cases. Over the last 7 days, laboratory confirmed cases of COVID-19 have increased from 228 to 304, and this represents a 33% increase over the last week. So in recent cases, we've seen a shift compared to earlier in the pandemic with more younger cases and fewer cases in adults 65 or older. So before May 28th, 22% of cases were in people 65 or older, but between May 28th and June 4th, we saw no cases in people 65 or older. So it appears that people 65 or older are heeding our call to stay home because they're in a more vulnerable group, and we encourage them to continue doing so. There have been a few clusters of cases, including several in one family related to international travel, several in fast food workers, as well as 15 cases in the Auburn jail. All of these clusters illustrate just how difficult it is to control a virus that can be spread by people who don't have any symptoms and for which the disease may not develop until 2 weeks after somebody is exposed to the virus. We've seen a concerning increase in cases in the Latino community, and we're working to improve our messaging to this community, including Spanish language messaging. We're also seeing cases associated with gatherings, including Mother's Day gatherings, funerals, and religious gatherings. And as a reminder, the only gatherings currently permitted under the statewide stay-at-home order are those up to 100 people at places of worship or protest. Excuse me for 1 second. So if you aren't already following cases on the online dashboard at placer.ca.gov/coronavirus, I invite you to do so. In the last couple of weeks, we've added recovered cases as well as zip code level data to this dashboard. The good news and the bad news for Loomis is that the case numbers are too small for us to report actual numbers without violating confidentiality. So the map lists the Loomis zip code 95650 as less than 6. This zip code actually crosses the arbitrary line that we've drawn between South Placer and Mid Placer on the map on the dashboard. So Loomis cases are included in either the South Placer or the Mid Placer case counts, depending on the specific address. And as of today, there are 241 cases in South Placer and 38 cases in Mid Placer. So I'd like to next discuss hospitalizations. We currently have 10 confirmed COVID-19 cases in our 3 Placer County hospitals, with 2 of these cases in the intensive care unit. Hospitalizations typically lag behind cases such that we would expect to see an increase in hospitalizations in the coming weeks associated with these recent increases in cases. However, we've generally seen fewer hospitalizations for younger COVID-19 patients, so we may not see a large increase in hospitalizations resulting from this uptick in cases among younger residents. And that is because about half of people 65 or older with COVID-19 are hospitalized, but only about 5% of people between the ages of 18 and 49 require hospitalization once they're infected with COVID-19. The good news is that at the present time, Placer County's hospitals have adequate capacity, including available critical care beds, ventilators, and personal protective equipment to care for patients with COVID-19. I want to shift gears a little bit and say a few words about contact tracing. Placer County's Public Health Division has strengthened our contact tracing capacity to address this increase in cases. Our contact tracing program is growing every day, and we're currently recruiting more personnel to increase our capability. This week, we're being onboarded to the state's brand new technology platform, which will increase our contact tracing efficiency moving forward. We began the COVID-19 response with a core communicable disease team here in the Public Health Division of 5 people. We've expanded significantly by redirecting existing public health employees, Health and Human Services Department employees, and employees of other county departments as contact tracers and as case investigators. And we're currently in the process of hiring up to 60 part-time employees as contact tracers to allow the redirected county employees to return to their usual assignments. While we primarily talk about contact tracing, there's actually 2 steps involved. The first is case investigation, where we speak with cases who are people with confirmed coronavirus infections to try to figure out where they may have become infected and to learn to whom they may have spread the virus through close contact. Close contact is defined as being within 6 feet of somebody for more than 10 to 15 minutes. All close contacts of a case are then called by a contact tracer to learn whether they have symptoms and to then arrange for COVID-19 testing. I would be remiss if I didn't end this update on coronavirus with a reminder for Loomis residents to continue taking action to reduce their risk of coronavirus infection, such as staying home as much as possible, washing or sanitizing their hands frequently, staying at least 6 feet apart from people who don't live in their household, wearing face coverings when around others, cleaning and disinfecting frequently touched surfaces on a daily basis, and monitoring their health, including watching for the wide array of symptoms that comprise COVID-19. So this is not just what you frequently hear about in terms of fever, cough, and shortness of breath, but the symptoms of COVID-19 also include chills, sore throat, headache, fatigue, muscle aches, loss of taste or smell, runny nose or congestion, as well as nausea, vomiting, or diarrhea. And then we would encourage anyone with these symptoms to get tested. So finally, as more and more sectors open, public health will be providing tools to help individuals choose lower risk options, such as outdoor over indoor, shorter visits over longer visits, fewer people over more people, bringing their own items over sharing items, and staying close to home over traveling farther away. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have at this time. Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Doctor, for coming in tonight and talking with us. Thanks for the presentation. It's okay. Can you just brief us on the phase 3 and when we will, when we expect all businesses to be back to normal, based on what the governor is telling cities and counties?
Sure. So Placer County officially entered stage 3 on May 26th. when we allowed hair salons and barbershops to reopen after the governor released guidance for that sector. And then last Friday, June 5th, the governor released guidance for 12 sectors, some of which are in stage 3 and some of which are still in stage 2. And on those, as part of that release, he made it clear that none of those sectors could resume operation prior to June 12th. So in Placer County, we are allowing those sectors to resume operations this Friday, provided that they have developed a site-specific safety plan and are reopening consistent with the state provided guidance, which actually, that guidance, while it's called guidance, it actually has the weight of law because it is referenced in the state public health officer's order for staying at home. So it's guidance is really a misnomer. These are requirements that businesses have to follow as they reopen. So those sectors, I don't have a list in front of me, but I do have a giant stack of guidance. Let me find a list. So it includes schools and school-based programs, day camps, hotels for tourism and individual travel, campgrounds and outdoor recreation, gyms and fitness centers, which also include swimming pools, family entertainment centers, which includes movie theaters, arcades, bowling alleys, zoos and museums, bars and wineries, as well as card rooms and racetracks, and tribal casinos, which, as you likely know, are under a different jurisdiction as sovereign nations, are also allowed to resume operations. So those are the sectors that can resume in Placer County as early as June 12th if they have a site-specific safety plan that has been developed. Now, there are additional businesses and sectors that are included in stage 3 for which the state has not provided guidance. And the state has made it clear that no sector can resume operations until the state has provided guidance for how that sector can safely reopen. And the local health officer in that county has allowed the sector to resume. So there are several sectors, including nail salons, other personal services, including massage, and additional, I believe, theme parks, and there are a few other sectors included in stage 3 that are not allowed to resume operations at this time. And unfortunately, I do not have a timeline of when the state will be releasing guidance for those sectors on how to safely reopen.
For that, I do want to report back to a local business person that reached out to me. He's a tattoo parlor artist and here in town, and he asked about that sector. Can you just brief us on that so I can report back?
Yeah, so tattoo parlors are one of those stage 3 sectors for which there is not guidance yet from the state. So the state's website very clearly states that tattoo parlors are not allowed to resume operations anywhere in the state of California at this time. And again, I do not have a timeline for when that might change.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Duncan, do you have any questions? No. Dr. Sisson, again, I want to thank you very much for your presentation. I know that you were working on helping with the site-specific plans because they can be a little complicated for businesses. Have you had a chance to work on that with the local chambers to sort of help out with some of these a little bit complicated documents?
Yeah, so our team with Reopen Placer, which is working closely with public health, has developed a template for businesses to use for their site-specific safety plan. And I believe for these new businesses that the county will be having I don't think it's a webinar, but there is a meeting tomorrow afternoon for several stakeholders to get their questions answered about the new guidance documents. And of course, our Business Resources Center here with Placer County, as well as Placer County Public Health, are also available to help individual businesses, especially businesses that may not fit neatly into any one category. I know certainly in the Tahoe area, we have ropes. Well, and even in Rockland, we have ropes courses and other outdoor recreation opportunities that don't necessarily fall nicely in any of these categories. So we've been able to be an intermediary between the California Department of Public Health and the business to help determine, one, whether they are allowed to reopen at this time and what the appropriate set of guidance would be for them to follow. So that is also a resource offered through Placer County with our Business Resources Center, as well as Placer County Public Health.
Thank you very much. Let's open it up for public comment now.
So I have several microphone. Apologies. I have several comments from YouTube, so I'll start kind of wading through those. Several from Sonia Coupler. The first couple, Dr. Sisson, are how do you make an appointment online, so specifically about the testing, I'm assuming, or on the telephone? Can you please provide the website and or the telephone number? And a question about the status of nursing home monitoring. And then I'll read a couple more when you get through those.
Yeah, absolutely. So hang on a second, because I want to make sure I get you the right website, because I don't think this is it. Nope, they changed it. Okay, hang on a second. All right, the website is lhi.care/COVID testing. So again, that's lhi.care/COVID testing. And I'm looking for the phone number, so forgive me. I know they're encouraging anybody who has internet access to make an appointment online, and they would like to reserve the phone number for people who do not have internet access. And I apologize, but I am not able to quickly find that phone number, so I may have to send that. I may have to get back to you on that one. I apologize.
The question was, what is the status of nursing home monitoring?
Yeah, so Placer County the California Department of Public Health, let me go back a second, recently issued an all facilities letter that requires all skilled nursing facilities. So this is not assisted living facilities or independent living facilities, but only that highest level of care, skilled nursing facilities. The California Department of Public Health requires them to conduct baseline testing for COVID-19 of all residents and all staff, as well as ongoing surveillance testing of all staff. And the baseline testing has to be completed by the end of June. So Placer County Public Health has been partnering with Placer County's 10 skilled nursing facilities, as well as the laboratory at the University of California, San Francisco, which has offered free COVID-19 testing to local health departments. So we have a plan in which all of Placer County's 10 skilled nursing facilities collect and submit specimens for testing from 20% of their residents and staff on a weekly basis. And we've been doing that testing. I believe we're in our third week of that testing right now. And we have not identified any positives at this point, which is excellent news. Many of you are probably aware that we had an outbreak in a skilled nursing facility in Auburn last month, and that outbreak has since resolved. and we did multiple rounds of testing in that specific facility. So the way the surveillance testing works is 20% of residents and staff are tested on a weekly basis, and if any person in a facility should test positive, the response is that every resident and every staff person in that facility is then subsequently tested for COVID-19 to get a full understanding of how widely the disease may have already spread in that facility. But as I said, so far, the surveillance testing has not identified any new positives.
Okay, then a couple more from Sonia Coupler. Do you expect the number of cases to increase due to the protesting happening in the region? And do you expect that this could possibly cause our county to go backwards in our reopening stages? And then I've got two more from her when you answer those.
Okay, so the question was whether we expect cases to go up with protests and whether we would then need to go backwards. Again, there's many times in this outbreak where I've been asked to look into my crystal ball, which unfortunately I do not have. Believe me, it would make my life easier. But certainly, you know, people gathering in with less than 6 foot distancing, while not wearing face coverings, while potentially shouting, and which generates respiratory droplets and propels them over long distances, is a recipe for coronavirus transmission if there is anyone in that gathering, in that crowd, who indeed has coronavirus. So I would not be surprised if we see new cases resulting from the gatherings that we've had for protests. I can't say with any level of certainty that that will be the case. I certainly keep my fingers crossed that it won't be, but I think it's completely reasonable for individuals who may have participated in a protest to, especially if people were not wearing face coverings and were not maintaining 6 feet of distance, it would be perfectly reasonable and even encouraged for those individuals to get tested either through their regular healthcare provider or through our free OptumServe testing site approximately 7 days after their exposure, and again, approximately 14 days after their exposure. The median incubation period, so the average time of somebody developing symptoms or actually becoming infected after exposure, is 5 days, but the incubation period, excuse me, it's been a long day, is up to 2 weeks or 14 days. So that's why getting tested twice would be ideal, at 5 to 7 days and again at 12 to 14 days after their exposure. I think that is a prudent approach for anyone who has the potential for coronavirus exposure through protest activities or other participation in gatherings without distancing. In terms of needing to go backwards, Placer County, as part of its stage 2 attestation for a variance from the California Department of Public Health, developed a set of triggers for when it might be necessary for the county to go backwards. And what I can tell you at this time is that the county has not met any of those triggers. Those triggers were really designed with a focus on avoiding overwhelming the healthcare system with a large number of coronavirus cases all at once. So the triggers relate to how quickly cases are increasing, including a doubling time of this is an epidemiologic doubling time of cases of less than 5 days for 5 days in a row, hospital capacity or the hospital census being greater than 135% of the baseline capacity, as well as 5 days in a row of increasing healthcare worker infections, along with less than a 7-day supply of PPE for our hospitals. There's also a few criteria related to how quickly our contact tracers are able to get people tested, as well as the percentage of contacts that we are able to get a hold of from a given case. So I review all those data on an ongoing basis. I reviewed them yesterday in preparation for this morning's Board of Supervisors meeting, and I can tell you that for those triggers, Placer County is not in any danger at this time of needing to go backwards. What I will add to that discussion, however, is that the California Department of Public Health has recently developed a set of county data monitoring metrics. Those were announced by Governor Newsom last Friday, and they are intended to be a supplement but not a replacement for the county's triggers that we developed as part of the attestation. And those county metrics, they're posted on the state's website, and they initiate a three-stage process between the county and the state health department, where stage 1 is monitoring the data. Stage 2 is if a metric is failed by the county, it initiates engagement between the county and the California Department of Public Health, and potentially in stage 3 requires going backwards or increased community mitigation measures. What I will tell you is that those metrics relate to the number of tests conducted in a day, the case rate over 14 days per 100,000 residents, the percentage of ICU beds available, sorry, I forgot the testing positivity rate, which we already discussed, and then the percent of ventilators available. And again, I reviewed those data yesterday in preparation for today's Board of Supervisors meeting at the county. And what I can tell you is that the Placer County currently passes all of those metrics, but we are kind of in we are trending in the wrong direction for one of the indicators. It is a dual indicator that is a combination of the case rate per 100,000 over 14 days, as well as the test positivity. So we currently fail half of that indicator, but not the other half. So this is a number that Placer County is closely watching and will continue to watch in case we do end up on the state's monitoring list, in which case we would engage with them and determine what the most prudent action is. Specific numbers for that, the cutoff is a case rate of greater than 25 per 100,000 residents and a test positivity rate greater than 8%. Our Placer County's current Placer County's current case rate per 100,000 over the last 14 days is 27 per 100,000. So we just exceed that measure, but our testing positivity rate is currently 3%, which is significantly less than the 8% cutoff. So we are currently passing that indicator, but it is a warning sign that we are watching very closely. But at this point, you know, it is appropriate for us to move forward with our stage 3 openings, as long as people continue to follow the guidance, one, the business guidance, but also individuals taking personal responsibility for their own behavior to reduce the risk of coronavirus transmission. Sorry, that was a long answer.
Okay, so we got more questions coming in. Does the site safety specific plan for businesses get submitted to or approved by the Placer County Office of Health or by the California Office of Public Health?
Yeah, neither. This is a self-certification process, so each business needs to develop a site-specific safety plan, but the plan does not have to be reviewed nor approved by either the local health department nor the California Department of Public Health. So it is a self-certification process.
Bonnie London, she says, thank you, Dr. Sisson. Can you address face masks? Can you also clarify the risk of transmission from asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic individuals? Thanks.
Sure. So face coverings and asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic. Sure. So face coverings, as the Placer County Health Officer, I have and continue to strongly recommend that residents wear a cloth or other face covering that covers both the nose and the mouth when they leave home, and especially when they cannot maintain 6 feet of distance from people who are not household members. So if you're going for a walk down the street and you can easily cross the street to avoid other people, then it's not necessary to wear a face covering. But certainly if you're going to the grocery store where it's virtually impossible to stay 6 feet apart from others, especially as you're walking down the aisles, then that would be an opportunity to wear a face covering. There's a fair amount of confusion about how face coverings work. So I want to take this opportunity to point out that the more people who wear face coverings, the more effective they are. So if I put on my face covering, it doesn't protect me as much as it protects you. So face coverings serve a purpose that we call source control in public health. So the person wearing the face covering, when they talk, when they cough, when they sneeze, when they breathe, any droplets that are being produced are trapped in that face covering, so they never go out into the wider world. But my face covering doesn't protect me as much as it protects you. So your face covering protects me. So for face coverings to be as effective as possible, it's important for as many people as possible to be wearing them. Face coverings are not mandated in Placer County, nor are they mandated in the state of California. However, the state of California strongly recommends them, and I, as the Placer County Health Officer, continue to strongly recommend that anyone over the age of 2 wear a face covering when they go out in public. Our public health team is currently working on a positive messaging campaign to promote the use of face coverings. I think that in the long term, that is a much more effective and sustainable approach compared to a mandate for people to wear face coverings. In terms of asymptomatic and pre-symptomatic transmission, I know this is a point of current somewhat controversy because the World Health Organization, one of their physicians yesterday, or I'm sorry, a doctor, I'm not sure if it was a physician or perhaps an epidemiologist, spoke on a news conference yesterday indicating that based on data that they had seen from contact tracing, that asymptomatic transmission was very rare and was not playing a significant role in the coronavirus epidemic. Subsequently, that person from the World Health Organization has walked that statement back and indicated that that was a misunderstanding. There is a lot of evidence that indicates, and this is from peer-reviewed studies published in the academic literature based on intensive investigation of clusters as well as other disease patterns, that indicates that potentially a large percentage of coronavirus cases are indeed a result of asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic transmission. And the distinction there is in many cases difficult to determine. Asymptomatic people are folks who never develop symptoms from COVID-19. Pre-symptomatic transmission occurs from people who eventually develop symptoms but are able to transmit their disease prior to developing symptoms. One thing we know about COVID-19 is the viral loads, or the amount of virus that somebody has in their upper respiratory tract, is actually highest before they develop symptoms. And so that's one of the reasons why we're particularly concerned about pre-symptomatic transmission. Some reports estimate that up to 40 to 50% of coronavirus cases are transmitted by people who don't currently have symptoms. Again, some of those people will go on to develop symptoms, others will not. And so, notwithstanding this misunderstanding of what the World Health Organization was trying to communicate yesterday, public health decision makers and leaders feel like we're supported by the evidence when we express our concerns about asymptomatic transmission for coronavirus. And that is the basis of many of our recommendations to control coronavirus, including the stay-at-home order, including the recommendation that people wear face coverings. The reason why we should all wear face coverings is because because there is asymptomatic transmission, any of us who feel fine could actually be could be infected with coronavirus and could be transmitting it just by talking and breathing. So by having a face covering on, you trap those virus-laden particles so that they can't be transmitted to anybody who's standing near you. So I hope that answered both of those questions.
We have a question from Miguel Yukovic who asks, are spray pads allowed to be open now?
Spray pads, is this as opposed to a swimming pool, but a...
Yeah, right.
Oh, okay, like a fountain. My understanding is yes, but these guidances just came out last Friday and there are 12 of them. So I'm still familiarizing myself with those details. So that's certainly something that I can follow up with. I believe that I read that they are, but I just want to confirm it in the guidance. And I'm a terrible multitasker, but I will do my best to try to find the answer while I'm on this call. And I'm also searching for the phone number for OptumServe at the same time. So again, forgive me because multitasking is not my strength. Good news. I do have the phone number for OptumServe. It's available on our Placer County website. So that number is 888-634-1123. So again, that's 888-634-1123. And there is Spanish language assistance available on that phone line as well.
Okay, I got more questions for you.
Okay.
Sorry, David Ring says, I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Sisson for all the hard work that you are doing for Placer County and the town of Loomis. Keep up the good work and make sure you're getting enough rest.
Thank you. I wish.
And let's see, from Jennifer Knisley from the Chamber of Commerce, can you ask about the requirements versus recommendations for staff of restaurants to wear masks? And also, will stage 3 be okay for small groups not related to meat, and how many people would that be?
Yeah, so let me take the first one about staff in restaurants. The guidance released by the California Department of Public Health and Cal-OSHA states clearly that any restaurant staff who come within 6 feet of the public are required to wear face coverings, and any restaurant staff who come within 6 feet of other employees, such as in the kitchen, are also required to wear face coverings. So essentially that captures everybody working in a restaurant with very few exceptions. Perhaps, a general manager in an office with a closed door would not be required to wear a face covering, but all public-facing staff who come within 6 feet of customers and all employees within 6 feet of each other are required to wear face coverings in the restaurant. In terms of gatherings in stage 3, at this time, the only gatherings that are allowed, are, as I pointed out, gatherings of up to 100 or 25% of the facility capacity for protests as well as places of worship. I continue to advocate on both in written communications with the California Department of Public Health and conference calls at least once a week with the leadership of the California Department of Public Health, and in some cases, personal phone calls and text messages with leadership of the California Department of Public Health for the importance of consistency in their guidance across sectors. And one of the areas that has been of particular challenge lately is this communication around gatherings. So I have expressed my concerns to the state and continue to do so that, you know, it does not make sense to allow, for example, now with the fitness facility guidance allows group exercise classes indoors while people are breathing heavily, and in which case they can generate and spread droplets further than 6 feet, so it would be a high-risk activity. Group exercise classes are allowed under the current fitness facility guidance, yet, you know, 5 people technically are not allowed to gather outdoors in a backyard if they're not household members. So I, for the last several weeks, have been advocating to the state that the importance of being consistent across sectors, and that if you're going to allow people to, you know, not technically a gathering, but essentially you're allowing people to gather non-household members indoors in a group fitness class, that you also have to allow non-household members to gather outdoors for other reasons. So at this time, those gatherings are not allowed under the state stay-at-home order, but I and many of my health officer colleagues across California are advocating on behalf of our residents for those activities to be allowed. Again, outdoors with physical distancing while wearing face coverings and minimizing contact with shared surfaces. So I hope in the near future that I can come back to you and state that those gatherings would be allowed, but currently they are not, and I do not have a timeline for when the state may provide additional guidance on those small gatherings of non-household members.
A question for this, she says, note from Pam Blake. Note, I got off the Grand Princess on February 11th and was sick for 6 weeks because I didn't have a temperature, I couldn't get tested, so I don't know if I've had it or not.
Yeah, you know, it sounds like this is somebody who probably did not reach out to Placer County Public Health at the time. You know, that was a challenging time in our outbreak because the Federal Centers for Disease Control was being rather strict about who could be tested at that time. But we were here in Placer County, we encouraged anybody who had any symptoms after disembarking from the Grand Princess to contact us so that we could get them tested. So it's unfortunate that that person did not get tested at the time. Certainly would be reasonable to for that person to pursue the serology testing, although, you know, serology testing for COVID-19 is still in its infancy, and the tests are not 100% accurate, and they're more useful on a population level than they are on an individual level to determine whether somebody has been infected or not. But that is an opportunity that is available, not at our OptumServe testing sites, because those are only doing viral testing, which is the nasal swab, and the serology testing is a blood draw. But certainly many physicians, as well as Quest Laboratories, which has many freestanding sites here in Placer County, they do offer serology testing. And if somebody has insurance, that testing, along with any other COVID-19 testing, is offered free of charge without any copay to the individual.
Okay, there's a follow-up here. She said, I reached out to Placer and Kaiser. Kaiser doctor called me back and said I was denied for testing.
Was that back in March, or is that currently? I guess would be my follow-up question. But I would continue to encourage that individual to pursue antibody testing to determine if they were indeed previously infected. But at this point, there wouldn't be any utility in doing the nasal swab because they would not currently be shedding the RNA from the virus. So that test would be negative.
So that's all the questions that we have on the YouTube feed. One of the things I'd like to ask Dr. Sisson, when you follow up with those on the spray pad, just to note that the spray pad doesn't run continuously. Somebody has to push a button on it to get it to actually activate. And we don't have an ability to sanitize that. So whenever you're able to get us the answer on that.
I'm looking at the guidance right now, but I'm not. I know I saw it. So I will keep looking, and I will get back to you. I've read many documents recently, and I'm not seeing it in the outdoor recreation, but that might be because it's in the gym guidance. So I will pull that from my stack right now, and hopefully I can have an answer in 1 minute for you. Fitness facility guidance.
Yeah. Well, we have one more follow-up from Pam Blake. Would antibody testing tell me if I had it?
It could. Again, antibody testing is not 100% reliable for individuals, but it is the only option for determining prior infection. And at this point, if somebody were infected in March, we would assume that they would have developed antibodies and that they would still have those antibodies. But because COVID-19 is a new disease and the SARS-CoV-2 virus is new, we don't know, one, whether those antibodies confer immunity, and if they do, how long that immunity would last. So it's possible that somebody could have been infected in March and they may not have antibodies still. But I would expect that within a couple months of infection, they still would have antibodies. And so an antibody test would be the best test in this situation to determine whether a prior infection had taken place.
So there's about a 30-second delay between the YouTube live feed where we're getting this question from, but we don't have anything new.
Okay, and I have not succeeded in finding splash pad guidance, so that's going to have to be an email follow-up, and I apologize for that. I'm doing my best to dig through these pages, but I think I'm going to have more luck after this call by searching the PDF digitally instead of manually.
Yeah, that's good. If you could just send me an email, that would work.
Sure, happy to do so.
So it doesn't look like we have anything new on the YouTube feed.
Okay, so no more public comment. I just want to take this opportunity to tell you, Dr. Sisson, how incredibly grateful we are for your time that you've given our county and our citizens, and for today as well. We've learned so much, and we know that it's just a monumental job that you're doing and your team, and we just thank you so much for giving us your time tonight.
Absolutely, and I spoke too soon. My digital search paid off, and in both the fitness facility and the outdoor recreation guidance, under additional considerations for swimming pools and aquatic venues, it does include splash pads in the category of swimming pools in a statement that says, campground, RV park, and outdoor recreation operators with swimming pools and splash pads should take additional steps to ensure those facilities are properly cleaned and disinfected. goes on. So my understanding is that the state is including splash pads in the swimming pool guidance. So I would encourage you to review either, it's the same guidance in the outdoor recreation guidance, which is part of the campground guidance, or the fitness facility guidance. Both include recommendations for swimming pools, which includes splash pads. So sorry, that one took a little bit of research, but hopefully that answers that person's question. And thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you, and happy to be here.
Okay. So we're going to move on now to...
Thank you, Dr. Sisson.
Thank you.
Sure,
Yes,
thank you.
Hang on.
Hold on.
Sorry.
I won't hang up.
Hang on. Here, Greg.
This is from Jean Wilson. Were there provisions for groups of 10 or less to meet, or is that a misunderstanding?
I'm sorry, I wasn't able to hear that question.
It was, are there provisions for groups of 10 or less to meet, or is that a misunderstanding?
That is a misunderstanding at this time. I know other states are allowing in their stage 2 or stage 3 gatherings of up to that number, but California does not have any small non-household gathering guidance at this time. So the official requirement from the state is no gatherings of non-household members except for places of worship and protests are allowed, whether it's 2 people, 10 people, 50 people, or more. So yeah, that is the number 10 is not correct. Although that is a number that many of the health officers are advocating for to the state. And so I hope that I could report back to this group in a few weeks that those gatherings are indeed allowed, again, with distancing, with the recommendation that they be outdoors and that people wear face coverings. But at this time, those gatherings are not allowed.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on now to matters of interest to council members.
Thank you, Dr. Sisson.
Does anybody have anything?
I do.
Please.
I brought it up to Sean earlier. I haven't had a chance to talk to Britt. The posts outside the Sunrise Loomis Park, they're like a 6x6 green treated posts. Some of those are broken off, and so the other day there was some kids riding dirt bikes and golf carts through the park. So we should probably take a look at replacing those posts, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a couple remarks to make. I know it's been a really difficult last couple weeks for this country, and I'm not looking to get into a race relations conversation, but I do want to reach out to the men and women and canines behind the badge, and I want to say that I know you guys are going through a difficult time as well. Those are the people that leave their house every day. They leave their loved ones to come and protect us. And rain or shine, no matter what's happening in the world, they show up for work every day. And they show up to defend us from evil. I know a lot of these people personally, and I know that a vast majority of those people are good-hearted and decent human beings, and they try every day to do a better job at the work they do than the day before. They're not perfect, but they are excellent, and we are fortunate to have incredible people with Placer County Sheriff's Office to serve us here in this community. So on behalf of the community and from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank those folks for showing up every day, and please know that you have our support, and it's the least that we can do for everything you do. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Anybody else?
No, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. All right, town manager report, please.
So normally I would be talking a lot about the COVID-19 stuff, but Dr. Sisson took care of a lot of that for me. I did want to just give a little bit of town update on the COVID issues, though. The first is that town staff is ordering permanent picnic tables that'll be placed at the center median section, so that's where the clock tower is, of the multimodal parking lot here at the depot. So right now we have those black benches. We're going to take the black benches out and put probably 10 picnic tables in there, so the restaurants will have seating, overflow seating, because of the restrictions on the amount of people that they can have inside the restaurants here. We're going to turn that into a little outdoor seating area, and those will be permanently placed in that area. So I just need to get those ordered. We're going to get concrete so they don't end up walking away, and so they're make sure that they stay easily sanitized if they need to be sanitized and all that. We're looking at working with the chamber to create a temporary seating area in front of the train depot itself. So basically in the front here where the parking is. That'll be expanded seating for restaurants that sell alcohol. So the area would be roped off in accordance with ABC requirements and made available for patrons eating food with an alcoholic beverage. And again, that's for the restaurants who are serving alcohol at the same time that they're serving food, so they've got additional seating capacity. That'll come to council for approval because it requires an encroachment permit to do that. And so I would assume that would be on either either the regular July council meeting or potentially a special meeting, depending on how the timing goes for that. The state provided Placer County and its cities with a stockpile of paper masks and hand sanitizer, and so the town will receive a number of those masks and the sanitizer that we're going to be distributing to our local businesses that need them. I'm working with Jenny from the chamber to figure out the best way to distribute those, and so the local businesses around here, if they need those, we'll have some. I have no idea how many we're going to get. I think that they had a pallet of 60,000 delivered, but that's for all the cities in the county, so I'm not sure what our allotment will be, but something's better than nothing for the folks who can't find those masks, which are pretty difficult to find sometimes. Public counter hours at Town Hall remain from 9 a.m. to noon, Monday through Thursday. Building inspections continue as well. We've actually expanded the hours in the building department. There's been a slight drop off on inspections after the initial backlog was caught up, but all other town and all other town facilities remain closed to the public. On Costco, final EIR for Costco is scheduled for its 10-day release at the end of this month. And assuming that date holds, the rough schedule for Costco hearings would be early July, and we don't have the actual date pinned down yet, but early July for a special planning commission special workshop. Mid to late July would be the planning commission hearing. Early to mid-August, town council hearing, and September 8th, 2020 would be the town council regular meeting. That's obviously kind of is a little bit up in the air, but that's what we're shooting for timeline-wise. On the kind of odds and ends, just different stuff going on. Town Manager Tuesday event that I was holding for a while there, that's obviously been put on hold because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but I'm going to be holding a virtual Town Manager Tuesday on June 23rd. So I think I'll probably do that either through Zoom or through Facebook Live. I'm not really sure how I'm going to set it up yet. I don't know the time I'm going to set it up yet. And so more information on that will come, and I'll send that out to our Facebook page, the town Facebook page. We began the update of our website in mid-March. So we've started updating the town's website. We're actually almost ready to launch that new site, and we're looking to do that in the next couple of weeks. Our administrative clerk, Sarah Day, has done an outstanding job of getting that website up and almost ready to launch it. I sit on the calls twice a week with her, but frankly, I don't do much other than sit on the call and say, yeah, that looks nice, or they should go here or whatever, and she does all the heavy lifting. So she's done a great job with that website, and I'm looking forward to getting that launched. And then the last thing, which I think will probably be interesting to folks, is the removal of the old gun store on Horseshoe Bar Road. Should occur if things work the way that they should on Thursday of this week. The property owner was issued a demolition permit. The water and sewer hookups have been disconnected to the building. We were waiting for PG&E to disconnect the power, but I found out this afternoon that was done today. Now they're basically ready to start the demolition. So that should happen on Thursday, barring any unforeseen things that happen, which could potentially happen, but hopefully on Thursday. I can answer questions from the council if you have any, and then we also have some YouTube comments as well.
Anybody?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sean, thanks for the report. What are our thoughts on the RFP for the mill? Are we still wanting to hold that for a couple months until things settle down?
At this point, I haven't released it because I'm not sure that this is the best time to release it with property values, the way the property values are, and kind of the issues going on with the real estate market. I'm going to reach out to GSEC, to the Greater Sacramento Economic Council, see if they have an idea on what we should do, if we should release it or not. And if any of you have like a contact with a commercial broker, that'd be good just to get a little bit of advice to kind of feel out and see what they think we should do. I think, right now, if we were going to do it, I could get that done and get it sent out pretty quickly. It wouldn't take much to do it. During the middle of the COVID stuff, when we were working from home and just trying to, stop drinking from the fire hose of all the information coming through, there was no way I would have been able to put it together. But if it sounds like it, on the commercial side, if brokers think it's a good idea to do that, we could do it and get it sent out.
Well, let me throw an idea out. I think what we've done in the past is we've done a 30 or 45-day window. It might not be a bad idea just to open the window up for 100 or 120 days.
Yeah.
Certain sectors of the real estate market have been hammered, but others have sustained, if not improved, since COVID hit. So, it might not be a bad idea just to open it up and let things fall where they do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Anybody else have any questions? And Sean, you said you had some comments.
Yeah, so question from Miguel Yukovic. Concrete benches get hot in the summer. I agree. Black powder coated steel also rusts when kids tear it all up with stuff that they end up tearing it up that we've seen. We looked at doing the thermoplastic covered ones, the plastic covered, and those fall apart in the sun. So question from Sonia Coupler. Can they take one of those black benches that they're taking out near the clock tower and put one on the bus stop shelter at the end of Shawn Way at Taylor Road? I'll look at putting it out there. What we're going to do with those also is kind of sprinkle them around on Taylor and create some seating, because there's not really any benches out on Taylor and the business district. So we'll find some good spots to put those in. We're not going to just toss them. We'll keep them. I'm also, by the way, the picnic tables we're getting, I'm going to get them with the umbrella hole in the middle, and we'll put one of the kind of red, colorful market umbrellas in it to keep the shade down and to make it look a little bit nicer than just a little concrete wasteland there.
Okay, any other comments that you see?
I don't see anything new, but there's that kind of delay, so give me a couple seconds here and we'll make sure that nothing comes in. Yeah, it looks like we're all caught up.
All right, let's move on to the Loomis Chamber of Commerce update. Hi, Jenny.
Jenny, you there?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and council staff and virtual audience. As Sean said, we are working with the town to try to, we'll be distributing that PPE equipment for all our businesses that can't get them at this time. So please reach out to Sean or the chamber if you're having trouble getting those emergency supplies for your staff. And we are in full support of the outside tables and seating for the center of the train depot. I also think, or just want to let you know that we are going to be working with Britt from the town on the bringing back the I Dig Loomis campaign for the downtown improvements on Taylor Road from Horseshoe Bar down to just past Foothill Feed. And also from the Chamber Point, we are unable to hold our Jim Kilner Golf Classic so we're postponed it till maybe August. But we're having a We Love Loomis golf day, and we are inviting the community to come out and support that day, where all of the funds will raise during that time will help our Loomis businesses during these difficult times. We're working on a special virtual edition of our Loomis State of the Town, and that'll be on June 24th. And we have some special presentations from our mayor, Sheriff Devin Bell, Lieutenant Brian Silva, Chief Eric Walder, and our Placer County Health and Human Services, Jeff Brown, on updates will be given on the variety of topics, including emergency plans for the town of Loomis and information on what's happening on the town. So we hope that you will all join us on June 24th. And that's pretty much all I have.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Anybody have any questions for Jenny? No? Nothing, no questions over there? Okay.
Nope.
All right, let's move on to public comment for items not on the agenda. This time is reserved for those in our virtual audience who wish to address the town on subjects that are not on the agenda.
I don't see anything on the YouTube feed. Oh, here we go. Was the Recology rate increase discussion moved to July 14th? We haven't got to that agenda item yet. It'll be coming up. Yeah, I don't see anything else.
That's it? Okay. All right. Do I have any motions to adopt the agenda for this evening?
So moved. Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Durko?
Aye.
Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Cartwright?
Aye. All right, now is the opportunity to comment on the consent calendar. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered by the council to be routine in nature and will be enacted in one motion unless an audience member or council member requests otherwise, in which case we will be removing it for separate consideration.
I'll pull item 12.
Pull item 12, please,
I'll pull item 8.
and pull item
Nope,
8.
sorry, 7. Nope, excuse me, Madam Mayor. Item 9. Okay?
Sure. 9.
Item 9, please.
Please pull item 9. Anybody else? Okay. And anybody in our YouTube or Zoom? Okay. And just a reminder that we are pulling items 9
And 12.
and 12. Do we have?
I'll make a motion that we approve items 1 through 8, 10 and 11. Is that right?
Yep.
Second.
Okay, may we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Baker?
Aye.
Durko?
Aye.
Mayor Cartwright?
Aye. All right. Can we please discuss item number 9?
Sean, my question is, can you just give us an update on what he's actually doing? he's wanting an extension. I'm not, in principle, opposed to granting an extension, but I would like a little more information on what the status is. Obviously, there's movement with Reds opening up, and that's very exciting. But I want more information before casting a
Yeah,
position on
so-
this. Thank you.
So the way that the facade improvement grant works is the work is done first. The awardee or the grantee submits all of the invoices at one time, and then we pay all the invoices at one time with one check. And so the facade improvements for Reds are going to be part of that grant. The facade improvements on the Loomis News building will be part of that, and also the Pizza Factory. Pizza Factory is doing work now, I think, or if they haven't started, they're going to be starting soon. And so what's basically happened is Reds is basically all done, but the other buildings are trailing, and because of this COVID situation, he hasn't been able to get contractors out there to start doing the actual work. But because of the way that we run the program, where everything gets paid by the grantee first, and then we reimburse all at one shot rather than doing it piece by piece, that's part of the delay.
Okay. So with the Loomis News building, what have you heard as the intention there?
He's been talking to a couple different tenants. One of them was a retail sort of operation, and then there were two others that were kind of a food, not so much a restaurant, but something kind of similar to a restaurant, kind of lighter food. So those are still underway. I actually ran into one of the people that he's been working with on a potential lease there last week, and they seemed pretty positive. And so that building needs kind of some significant tenant improvements to be done on the inside, and so the facade improvements being done first. I don't know how that's all going to shake out and what the timing is going to be. So, but there is movement. The Flooring America building, he's talked to me about leasing that a couple different times. So there is interest in that. The Smog Shop on the corner, there was an idea of putting a coffee place in there. And so I don't know, kind of retrofitting it and having it look, kind of keeping the old garage motif. I don't know if this is all kind of pre-COVID, so I'm not sure like the status of all that now, whether those leases have dried up or not. But the Loomis News building, that one, I just talked to somebody there like last week, so that one looks like it's a positive.
Thank you, Sean. I'll move the item. Madam Mayor.
Anybody else have any questions on that item? No? Britt, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
No, he's for 12.
Okay.
So we'll
So
move
do we
that
have-
forward. Was that?
Do we do a motion and do that? Okay.
I'll second.
Roll call, please, for item 9.
Councilmember Rodrigo.
Aye.
Baker.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Duncan.
Aye.
Mayor Clark-Kretz.
Aye. Okay, let's move to item 12. Councilmember Baker, you had a...
This bathroom's more than my house. It's a very expensive bathroom. I just wanted to kind of talk about that, the options that we have, doing a rebid, something. I mean, $318,000 for a very small building is quite a sum of money.
It is. It is. And I think part of the understanding of this, you got to understand this is a public bid project. This is a public works project. Basically, we have to pay prevailing wage. It drives the prices up. There's a lot of reporting, a lot of extra costs that you don't incur when you're building a house. When you're building a house, you can kind of go out and choose your contractors and economize and do that kind of stuff. But when we're building a public facility, we've got to follow a lot of certain rules, and a lot of those are prevailing wage. If the town were to build your house, it would cost at least double what you paid for it. So.
Yeah, I understand that completely, but I mean, even with prevailing wage, you're talking a building that was, what, 12 foot, 14 foot by, I mean, this isn't like, it's not like we're building a massive thing where we have, $200,000 in materials. I mean, there's definitely not $200,000 in materials. There's not.
No, it's a very small building.
There's not 30,000 in materials probably if we did the total on it. So
some of the other things with this building is it has to be much sturdier than a normal house. So this isn't just a, picking out somebody's bathroom out of their house and installing it in the park. So it's a brick building that's got to stand up to vandalism, to very aggressive cleaning tactics.
Very aggressive cleaning tactics.
Yes. We could try to rebid this, but there are some costs that are not going to go away. The connection to the sewer, the connection for water.
What were those total connection costs?
The building itself was around $100,000, 120, I think, part of the bid. The rest of it was the additional cost of ADA compliance, pouring the slab for the building, the flat work around it, trenching for the utilities, the power, water, sewer connection. We have to actually go out into the street, trench, make a connection to the sewer. So making those hard connections were at least half of this cost. When we did pick the building, we didn't pick an extravagant building. We picked just a utilitarian, sturdy building that was going to hold up to, stand the test of time. I think we learned a lot of lessons. We tried to go cheap on the building next to the depot, and we've had tremendous problems with that particular building. Our staff is constantly out here dealing with things. We tried to go with a less expensive prefabbed building, and the units that came in, the toilets and the sinks that came in with it needed a higher pressure than water that was available. So now we have a pump in there that fails about every 2 years. We had to put electronic locks on it, and that was, some of the motivation to do an actual structure out there at Sunrise Loomis was now we can put electronic locks on there so that we can lock people out at night instead of having to try to put a padlock on a little blue building, which can easily be taken off. So.
Okay.
Madam Mayor.
Please.
So thanks, Britt, for bringing this to us. I just want to recall back when we first started talking about putting a bathroom at Sunrise Loomis Park. The thinking was that we wanted to dress up the park a little bit, invest in our parks, and having an outhouse in a neighborhood like that is just unbecoming. And so the idea was certainly a good idea. And when we first looked at this, my stomach dropped when I saw six figures at 100,000, and then it kind of crept up to 150 or 180, and I was uncomfortable then. But there's no way I can support a bathroom at that cost. And while I'm not disagreeing with you or the bids because of prevailing wage, it's just not a good way to spend taxpayer money. So what I'd like to do is maybe think about getting a nicer outhouse, if there is such a thing. There are nicer looking outhouses out there than the one that we've got. But I just think of people in the neighborhood, right, especially the people across the street that have to look at that every day. It's just, an unattractive thing that you really, so I've said enough about that. But I think it's probably in our best interest to pull the item. So that we can go back to the drawing board and hopefully, come up with some different ideas. Maybe there's cities out there, when you guys go do your, go out throughout the state and go to trainings and network with fellow engineers, see what they've done, because we can't be the only city or jurisdiction in the state that's facing that kind of cost for a bathroom. So just keep your eyes and ears out for something that would be a more cost-effective alternative. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Absolutely. Councilmember Duncan.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with Brian and Tim. We need a bathroom there. And it's a health and safety issue as well. I mean, I walk by there all the time. There's trash all around it. And how can kids wash their hands after going to the bathroom with a pit toilet? I know there's some that have that, but big concern I had also was the security of the building, as far as you almost have to make a blockhouse, basically very secure. So that's the only concern I have with if we do get some type of prefab system or something like that. But another concern I had about construction of the restroom, especially at this cost, is it always seems that, especially in this area with granite, rock being all around us, and there's one really close, and that was one of my concerns, that if they started on the project and then all of a sudden, now we're going to have to, dynamite or do other stuff to, get that granite outcropping out from under it, and then that could cause a cost overrun. So that's my concerns. It is an awful lot of money, and at the same time, I do understand the need for something substantial, because unfortunately, no matter where you live, there are some kids that think it'll be funny to blow something up or tear something up or vandalize something. So I do think that we need something that's substantial and not movable necessarily. So
I think that part of the learning process for this, too, for me, was when I first was looking at this, when it was first proposed a few years ago that we put a structure out there. I had made an off-the-cuff guess of 70 grand, and I was thinking that you can just put basically a stick building out there with a toilet in it, and I thought we could do that for maybe 70 grand. But as this project evolved and I started to getting a better understanding of it needs to be prison grade, it's got to be some, what we go through over at this restroom that is adjacent to us here, it is being stress tested every single day. The people, it's hard to explain all the things that go on in those restrooms. And they definitely try to rip the sinks off or the toilets out. These things have to be extremely sturdy structures. What I was proposing here is kind of just a brick building with structure, with toilets you can't rip out of the wall. And that's what it's going to cost to put one out there. We can't do a stick building. It won't stand up to the vandalism. It just won't. It's got to be something we can scrub the graffiti off of every 2 weeks. I'll go out and I will see if there's other jurisdictions that have found less expensive ways to do this. But like I said, I didn't pick a fancy building at all. If you look at the bid documents, it's just a block building. It's basically a prefabbed building, but I can't call out a specific building manufacturer. I have to spec out one that meets certain specs. So it is basically a prefab building.
So what were our direct hard costs? The hookups, what was that? Just hookups, what are we at?
I don't have those on hand.
Okay. Between sewer, water, and electrical, because we're going to have the 3 hookups.
Those will be around 100 grand.
Okay.
Because we have to trench into the street. We have once you connect to a manhole, you've got to patch the street. You've got to test the sewer system you connected to.
No, I get all that. I'm just trying to figure out, we have our hard costs on what it's going to cost just to do the plumbing and the piping.
Yeah.
And then that gives me a better understanding of slab work, ADA work, building work. So, okay.
Councilmember Morales, you have questions? No? Let's open it up for public comment then, please. And I think we already had a public comment sent in.
Yeah. So we have one on YouTube. Is it just for a toilet? How many toilets? And are there sinks? How many sinks? Are there any other features?
So it's
from Sonia Coupler, sorry.
It's a 2. So basically, there's 2 bathrooms, and in between the 2 bathrooms is a small chase where all the plumbing goes in, and so there's 3 doors on it, but there's only 2 restrooms.
2 sinks.
2 sinks, so you can wash your hands when you're done spraying your food.
And then we have one additional comment. This is from Jesse Lunsford. 2 years ago, when Councilmember Onderko proposed the replacement of the porta potty at Sunrise Loomis Park, I thought this was a wonderful idea. Both Sunrise Loomis Park and the joint agreement to use Loomis Grammar School playground as a park have used porta potties for years. That night, the discussion estimated $50,000 to $70,000 to upgrade to a permanent bathroom. Over the years, the estimate increased to $100,000. Then earlier this year, it reached $200,000. Now the current bid for a single bathroom is $318,000. And I must ask, is the town and the park fund getting the best bang for its buck by replacing a single porta potty for over $300,000? Some other ideas on $300,000 in the park fund are we could buy 2 additional acres of parkland, or buy the right-of-way for biking and hiking trails, or for the state-mandated update to the current splash pad at Blue Anchor Park, or maybe a second splash pad behind the Library Learning Center. Of course, these are just some of the rough ideas where spending over $300,000 in park funds might better affect and improve more lives than replacing a single porta potty that has worked not ideally, but has worked for many years. If the council decides to continue with this plan on permanent bathrooms, is it possible to look at bids for prefabricated public restroom companies? Just Googling this subject shows several companies in California that specialize in installing some beautiful factory-built, fully furnished bathrooms. Maybe these are more economically priced than a custom-built facility. As always, thank you for your time. Jesse Lunsford. I don't see anything else on YouTube. Wait, we have one more. From Miguel Yukovic, you were buying a prefab building which runs $100,000 plus $100,000 for site work. Was this a new plan?
I don't understand the question.
Better.
I apologize, I don't have the numbers in front of me exactly how that shapes out, how much the building costs, how much the site work costs, how much the utility connections cost. I'm kind of giving rough estimates, but I'm feeling pretty comfortable that it's about a third.
Is there any, sorry.
Please, go ahead.
Is there any like grant money that could be had as far as the health and safety issue of having a bathroom there in light of the COVID-19 and I remember back in the day when you had to wear a hairnet at restaurants and stuff, and it seems like we've gotten away from that. But as far as the bathroom goes, I still think it's really important for the kids. I saw a family there once. The son small child, went to the restroom, and then he told his mom, "I want to go home," and he had to walk home. So this is an important issue for our park, and it's not just something to look at that's pretty. It does have to do with health and safety. So I'm just curious, is there any monies out there to be had?
I'm not aware of any, but I can definitely look to see.
Well, I think that we all agree that a bathroom is needed there. I have to say that the price is just astronomically higher than I envisioned, and it seems just not the right time or place to spend that kind of money on a bathroom. But maybe we could find something else somehow. Maybe we pull it back and try to find different ways and different types of businesses to maybe lower the price a little bit, because we know it's going to be at least $100,000 for the hookups.
We have one more public comment that came in. A question from Miguel. Did Williams Patton design this?
Yes.
I would just say, from my perspective, I think that we've heard clearly from the council that putting in a $318,000 bathroom is going to be too much, and so we'll bring this back after looking at doing some, value engineering, figure out a way to price it down, or other alternatives, see what we can do to, meet the objective of council of getting a bathroom put in there, but at the same time having to be halfway reasonable. At least on the building side, understanding that the hard costs of the connection fees and the site work are kind of what they are, but the building itself, figure out if there's ways to cut that cost as much as possible, and we'll just bring that back when we can.
Madam Mayor, question of staff.
Please.
can we, just throwing ideas around, what if, what triggers prevailing wage? My thought is maybe we could get one of the community groups like, I don't know, Cub Scouts or one of the other community groups to build it. However, I realize there is, it sits on public property. So what is it that triggers prevailing wages?
Prevailing wage is triggered by when a project is paid for in whole or in part out of public funds.
Okay.
There are some special rules that apply to volunteer work. I'm not sure how that would work. There's some professional work that would be needed here. So you'd need to be looking for volunteers who have the licensing and the technical skills to be able to make the connections.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there are some special rules that apply in those cases because the state does not want, volunteers that aren't really volunteers. But that's certainly, that is something to be looked at if there's a way to find a business that would contribute materials, contribute labor. I don't know if there's anybody out there looking to find this kind of a project, but.
Well, there's a lot of resourceful people in this community with construction backgrounds and expertise. That's why I asked. But is there something that triggers a prevailing wage because it is public property?
No, it's not an issue of property. It's an issue of how it's paid for.
Okay.
And it would come out of our park fund, not our general fund. Right. So direction on pulling it back, or what's the modus operandi on that?
I'd like to see what options we have available to us. If there's grant options, if there's, I understand, I apologize, it's more work for you guys, but I just think, man, 318,000 is that's a big number. So I'd like to see if there's something we could do to scale it back, find grant money, whatever it is, to see if we can kind of offset some of these costs, because it's desperately needed. I mean, I watch, kids with Little League there, there's soccer that practices there, there's all kinds of things, and, it's that toilet, the Chuck House that's there is not that appealing to go into for any sanitized purposes. So I think it's needed. There needs to be a bathroom there. We just need to figure out how to balance that cost out.
I don't think we should give up on it. And I would like staff to dig a little deeper. But I do have a question of Roger. Roger, offhand, do you know how much we have sitting in our park budget right now?
We'll be talking about that in a bit.
I think I have it.
While Roger's doing that, I have two other public comments since we're still kind of on the public comment. But question from Sonia Coupler: what is the range that council would be comfortable spending? And a question from Miguel Yukovic: you said this was a prefab building or not?
It's not prefab. It's not prefabbed, but it's basically to the specs of a prefab building. Because I couldn't call out a specific manufacturer.
We have about $850,000.
$850. Thank you, Roger. So I guess the question of council is, what are we doing with that $800,000, right? It's just sitting there collecting very little in interest, and we don't have, there's not a lot of opportunities to go out and buy new parks and develop new parks. For me, I just take issue with money sitting in a bank account not doing anything, and I like unless it's reserves, but in this case it's not. I like getting money out on the streets. So I guess council, we just got to figure out what the best use of that money is, but it's not good to have money sitting idle, not being active in the community. So to answer the question of what are we comfortable with, my stomach dropped at 200,000 or 180 last time we looked at this, when you consider what it actually is, right? And so, I'd love to get back to that number. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so we're talking about bringing this back and potentially getting more information, but perhaps, I'd like to even maybe give the public a little bit more chance to look at the numbers. And yes, we may have enough in our park fund, but is it really okay for us to spend that kind of money? So maybe we just need a little bit more time to make sure our decision is good. So with that said,
I guess a motion to continue.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Item continues.
All right, now we're going to move to our public hearing, solid waste fee increase, item number 13.
So annually, our solid waste hauler has the option to increase per the cost of living increase, and that's what we've put together, but we're going to continue that to allow proper noticing of everybody so that we can advertise it in the paper and get it out. So we'll bring this back in July.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? No? Do we need to open up public comment?
Yeah, any agenda item, even though we're continuing, we do need to allow for public comment if there is any. We have a comment from Pam Blake saying the Recology postcard shows 7:30. And a comment from Sonia Coupler, ask Recology to change the time on their postcard to 7 p.m. Question from Thomas Savage, does cost of living increase account for potential decrease in costs from COVID, lower fuel costs, etc.? I think that the answer for that, do you want to answer that? Or I think that the answer for that is better to be addressed by the hauler when they're here from Recology itself. They're the folks who should answer that question, not the town. Question from Pam Blake. Called Recology to pick up a dead possum on my street, and they didn't know that what I was talking about.
Go ahead.
Okay, I just got a comment from Jean Wilson on the last item. Do you want to draw that? It was on the last time, but it just came in.
The public, that's...
Too late?
I mean...
Closed it. Okay.
We'll make sure to get it to council, though. And it looks like that's it.
Okay. Well, I will say that, if I could say, certainly it seems garbage is increased because people are staying home, and at least at my house, our garbage is always full and my business is full. So I know they have their work cut out for them. But on the other hand, it's hard to see anything increased during this time. So let's bring it back and we'll discuss this next time.
Right.
Okay.
Sean, are we looking to have a motion to continue it to a date certain?
I believe that's what we were, yeah. So, yeah. Because if we don't, then Recology would need to resend the notice.
And just a comment on the 7:30, that it is typical to have public hearing notices, say 7:30 or as soon thereafter as it may come up. I'm not entirely sure why they pick 7:30, except that there's usually at least a half an hour of other materials that go on in a meeting. So my recommendation is I don't think they need to renotice the time, as long as the matter is continued to a date certain. I think that notice will be sufficient.
Okay, do we have a motion to continue to a date certain?
Motion to continue.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion to continue to July 14th. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Baker?
Aye.
Aye.
Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Cartwright?
Aye. All right, let's move to item 14, operating budget for the 2020-2021 fiscal year.
Okay. I'm going to have to turn this so I can see what I'm talking about, so I'm not making it all up. So I've given you the budget. I apologize that the very first paragraph in my staff report's wrong. It had information from last year that I didn't update. The deficit continues to be $310,000, not $205,000, which is actually better than last month because it was over $400,000. I always like to bring all these wonderful cures and stuff at this meeting when we adopt a budget that solves all of our problems, but unfortunately that's not the case this year unless the council decides to make sweeping decisions that I haven't written into the budget. I expect that unless you add to the deficit, that we'll come out with $310,000 is going to be our deficit for the next year. Now, what I have up here is my budget dashboard, and you can see that where this great big red bar says that we're in the hole. The question is, how are we going to take care of that? Well, we have ways. First, let's look at some of the decisions we needed to make to get there. Usually, here's where all the fixes come. My question is, will the state do its COPS funding this year? My expectation is yes, they will. In the past, it was $100,000. So what would happen then is we would need to fund that extra, because it's going to cost us $209,000 this year for our traffic enforcement officer. The question is, where does that $109,000 come from? And it was the general fund. Well, that's why last month the deficit was $420,000 instead of $310,000, because I had that extra $110,000 coming out of the general fund. Well, it turns out we've been getting more than $100,000 a year. For the last 4 or 5 years, it's ranged from $125,000 to $160,000. And so excess has built up. And so this year, I took that portion out of the general fund. We're taking it all out of COPS money and saving the general fund by $100,000. So that's why we're now at that. I'm saying, so here's my question. Should the general fund cover the cost of the traffic enforcement officer in excess of the COPS funding? My answer is no. I'm going to leave it at that. The other question that we always ask at this point is, do we want to do a CPI, a cost increase for the Mellow Rouge, the lighting districts that we have in the town? That about half of our maintenance funds we're allowed to put an index on. This year, based on the April CPI, it would have been 1.1%. We did not, as you may have noticed in the consent calendar, we did not include that CPI this year, just as a breather for the residents that are in those zones. This year we're going to waive that increase. We haven't always done the increase. For a number of years we didn't. So we thought, unless council decides that we need to keep that increase, it would be a minimal effect if we do. We don't want to keep doing that as a habit because we don't want to get behind inflation. But this year, the 1.1% would not have made a lot of difference. So it says, so my question here is, how much of operations are you willing to fund out of prior year excess reserves? And that's where we come up, that's how we balance our budget. In government, you're allowed to say, we have reserves, we're going to use those for revenue, suddenly you're in balance. So my recommendation at this point is that I'm going to drop the 310, 748 in there. The red disappears, it goes green, and we're in balance. Some of the other things we've talked that are included in this budget that you may or may not want to include, I have $5,000 for planning consultants. We always tend to have that. $5,000 for community outreach. That's the money that we've been spending on the newsletter. That may not be enough to cover it, but you know, we can go forward. We can do what we can. At mid-year, we'll have to see where we are, and maybe we can bump that up. Code enforcement we talked about before has been slashed. That's at 1/4 of where we were before. It was something that it was available. We were over $60,000 in last year's budget for that. The council travel budget, I took out $10,000 and we're back down to the $7,000 we used to have. And then I put $2,000 in for the community swim program. We're definitely not doing it this year, but if we decide to do it next year, we'll need money for June. On the questionnaire that went out, the survey, I was told that 20 to 25 people have responded favorably for the swim program. So we'll summarize those results in the next few months, bring that to council and bring that up as a discussion for, suppose there's money next year, do we go forward with that? So let's talk about where the money, what we have. So this is where our reserves are at. You don't have this. I usually do this about this time of year. When I started in 1994, all of the money, that excess revenue over expenditures was broken down in different ways. The policy of the town is that if there's more revenue in the general fund than expenses, that money automatically gets earmarked for capital improvements, and that's this number right here, reserved for capital improvements. And that was where a lot of the money was when I got here. There was $55,000 for Dunmore drainage. I don't know what that is. That's a 30-year-old number. I'm going to do some research and find out whether that's something we're really committed to. It has something to do with the drainage in Sunrise Loomis, from what I understand. We'll look into that. Reserve for fire districts, $45,000. There's 3 different little pots of money that were for Penryn, Loomis, and some other fire department, South Class or something, I don't know. I've added them together. Again, I have no idea what we set aside for them. I'm going to research that and see if I can get rid of it. These other ones were set up since my time. They put aside $200,000 for community facilities. Could be for a park if we wanted to. This is general fund money that had no specific purpose, identified by council for these purposes. Reserve for litigation, $550,000. We're in a risk pool. We don't buy insurance. We have to pay the first $25,000 of any claim. The risk pool gathers money throughout the year for us. We pay into it. But if we had 2 really big hits, we might be assessed for up to $50,000 for that. So that's why I have that earmarked. Reserve for parks. No, there's more for parks. COPS set aside was money when we were worried that the COPS fund was going away. We set a little bit aside, so I could always use that if we needed to. I'm going to leave it alone. Council could decide to put that back into operating reserves if they want. OPEB set aside. These are other post-employment benefits. Most cities have set up trust funds for this, where they pay into it. You can never get that money back. Our OPEB isn't very big, and so I thought, we've got reserves, let me just earmark some of it. If the day ever comes that they say you have to set it aside, we've already got it, we'll be able to put it in there. So the money that's really comes to where we need, reserve for capital improvements, we'll start the year at about $3.3 million. Reserve for operating reserves, $1.1 million. Library reserves, just about $200,000. And general plan reserves, $650,000. So $400,000, if you look at the transportation fund, you'll see that I set up that we have like $1.8 million worth of projects. $400,000 of that is from the general fund, and that's coming out of reserves, so not out of the current operations. The $310,000, that's these two numbers added together, 226,750 and 84. $84,000 of the $310,000 is the excess of the library costs over the tax that we collect for that fund. I'm projecting about $300,000 for the library, for the quarter-cent district tax, and about $384 for costs. So the remainder, $226,750, would come out of our operating reserves for operations, which leaves us $885 of that and $115 of the district tax. This is money that you could tell us if the council decides, you know, we want to spend more on the park. We want to spend more on not the park. If we want to spend more on code enforcement, we could bump that back up to $60,000, but that would come out of operating reserves, out of this $884,000. And I mentioned that cautiously because in other cities around the country, other states, if they get short, they just raise taxes. California, we don't get to do that. This operating reserves, this is our insurance policy. So we have to cautiously decide whether we want to do anything with that. That's my recommendation, is funding the $310,000 out of operating reserves and library reserves. I think my goal is to have a well-funded, well-run library, and we haven't scrimped anywhere on that this year. We haven't cut any back. So we haven't cut anything, haven't cut any payroll. We did not include a cost of living increase for the employees, even though 1.1 is technically based on the agreement that the council has with the staff. We're waiving that for the time being, hoping that by mid-year things would be better. That's where we stand. And that's really my presentation based on what we talked about last month and what's in the budget. I did budget $318,000 out of the park funds to pay for the comfort station. But remember, a budget is it's a yardstick. It's not a contract to spend money. We don't have to spend anything that isn't agreed to by council. So are there any questions that you want? Anything you want to discuss specifically in a department or revenues or expenses? So, and let me say, as far as sales tax, I was hyper conservative. It may not be this bad. We just don't know. I mean, this is just a really weird year. So I cut it to be as safe as I could, so that we wouldn't overspend it at all. Anyway, so.
Anybody have any questions?
I have.
Please.
So what you're saying, Roger, is later on when we find out in a couple of months, oh, the economy's booming again, that we could come back and say, we'd like to bump up the code enforcement again.
Yeah, I would definitely at mid-year, when we do our mid-year review, we'll have a really good idea of how it's coming out. Economists I've talked to and heard from say that they expect we'll get back to about 80% of where we were in February. They didn't say when. Could be 3 years from now. I'm thinking, hopefully by Christmas time people are spending money again. I think, unlike other recessions, everybody out there wants to work and businesses want to do business. It's not that there's no demand, it's just they can't do it. So I believe, they say there's a U-shaped recovery, there's V-shaped recoveries. I'm thinking it's going to be somewhere between a U and a V. It'll be quicker than a normal recession recovery, but maybe not as quick as we'd like. Check mark recovery, because it's only coming up to 80%. So yeah, I would think, I think code enforcement's the first thing we'll want to add back. I've already looked around, I see, well, if it happens on the weekend, it doesn't need a permit type of stuff going on, and it's kind of scares me. I wish we had Lee to go after them.
Councilmember Anderko.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Have you changed any of your assumptions since you presented this to us last month?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I, with Jeff, am concerned about the code enforcement. It seemed like Lee was quite busy dealing with things that had kind of been swept under the rug or out of sight, out of mind for a little while. So I definitely would, at our mid-year, want to really revisit that, whether it comes out of operating reserves or it comes out of the economy's doing better, whatever it comes out of. I think that number does need to be bigger than what it is currently.
I've said before on the code enforcement, we could literally keep at least one person busy full-time for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. Having Lee work on a contract basis worked very well. We increased her time to 2 days a week, council's direction. And so the idea of bringing it back at mid-year to look at that again makes, sense for sure. But there's definite need there. The reason we dropped it down is because that's really one of the only discretionary pots of expenditures that we have, and so that's one of the reasons why it was dropped.
So what exactly is happening with code enforcement right now?
So right now, Cricket and Carol are splitting those duties, and we're responding to complaints as much as we can, but it's basically focusing on health, life, safety issues. So buildings that are not, that are substandard and need to be torn down or addressed to the building department or whatever that is. The other stuff, we send out letters to inform people that they're have a code violation, and then we follow up as we can, but it won't be as robust as it was when Lee was here for sure, because the duties are being it's an additional duty on top of what Cricket and Carol were already doing that with their regular planning and administration duties.
So the pending cases are just, they continue to stay where they were when she last.
There's a couple that
expire?
No, they don't expire. There's a couple that we're continuing to follow up with. There's one kind of significant one that Lee was working on that we'll be picking back up here now that we're back in the office. But when the COVID stuff happened and everybody started working from home, trying to track all that was basically impossible for us to keep up with everything. So there's a couple significant ones that we're continuing to follow up. The gun shop is a perfect example, right? So we've continued to hammer that property owner to get that taken care of. There's another one that's off of a street in the north-ish part of town, north. And so we're continuing to look at those. But the lower one, the ones that aren't like really health, life, safety, they're just more of kind of like neighbor issues. Not that those aren't important, because they are, but trying to prioritize what we're doing that's where we're at right now.
Yep. No further questions.
Okay. All right. Any questions?
Can I point something out really quick? You'll see on the general plan reserves, we've got $650,000 for the fiscal year ending next month, or the end of this month, and that same amount for the fiscal year ending 2021. And if you look in the budget, on the planning department budget, there's a dash there, which makes it look like there won't be any general fund or general plan update processes happening this year. That's not the case. We're actually continuing on with the general plan update. It's been modified a little bit in terms of the timing with the public meetings that we wanted to do, but we do need to do, and we are going to continue on with the general plan update. We're going to bring back that actual budgetary amount at mid-year and have council approve that as a kind of a mid-year update because we need to get back the RFP for the housing element, land use element, and get those moving. Those will be coming to council either July or August. So that work is going to be continuing on. It just doesn't show on this initial budget that you have in front of you.
Well, that, and then when I talked to Mary Beth today, she said the majority of what we're doing this fiscal year was covered by grants. And so it'll be a wash through our budget anyway. And the part that isn't covered by grants will as the contracts are approved, that amount will be earmarked and as a budget amendment.
Right.
Okay, great. And also back to the sales tax revenue, reminding everybody that the governor has given a year reprieve for businesses to pay their sales tax rates, and so that's kind of really complicating the estimation of what our revenues are going to be. Some businesses are going to be paying it, and some businesses are not. So
and
just
some businesses simply aren't earning anything.
Yeah, so it does add to the complications. So shall we open it up for public comment?
So on YouTube, we have a comment from Sonia Coupler. What is the current caseload of the Code Enforcement Department, and how would this fiscal adjustment affect this department? The caseload, do you have any idea what the number is? Like, I mean, it's in a spreadsheet format, and it's probably, 4 pages long. Some of them are duplicates. So Cricket's estimating around 30 active cases. How would this fiscal adjustment affect this department? I think that Sonia is asking what dropping the department down, the budget down to 14,000 versus the 40,000. Obviously, that's a significant hit, but we are looking at bringing Lee back 2 days a month. So it's not like that time is completely wiped out. There's a small amount that will be picking back up after the first of the fiscal year. Comment from Loomis Basin Chamber of Commerce. Thank you to Treasurer Roger Carroll, staff, and council for keeping the town of Loomis with a fiscally sound budget and keeping our general plan update moving forward. Yeah, I'm kind of waiting here for the live feed to catch up. Yeah, so it looks like that's the only questions that we had on YouTube.
Okay, we'll bring it back to council, and please.
Is there any way, say we start having issues with code enforcement before a mid-budget review, is there any way that we can bring, this comes back to us and we do an allocation of money to that, or?
You can make a budget amendment at any council meeting you want.
Any other questions?
So there are a number of resolutions that need to be passed, but if you just move staff recommendation, it covers everything.
Okay. Do we have any motions to adopt these resolutions?
Motion to approve staff's recommendation.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Jerko?
Aye.
Baker?
Aye.
Morales?
Aye.
Duncan?
Aye.
And Mayor Cartwright?
Aye. Okay, resolutions are passed. Now we'll move on to business item number 15, trial food scrap program.
Can you hand me the mouse?
Oh.
Hey, Sean, could you please let us go on the video for the Zoom?
I'm working on it.
Perfect.
So I'm Britt Snipes, the Public Works Director. I'm here to present the staff report for the Trial Food Scraps Program. And basically, I'm just here to introduce the Del Oro High School Environmental Club. I'll give you a little bit of background. The state requires us and gives us the responsibility to come up with innovative ways to reduce greenhouse gases. They don't tell us exactly how we're supposed to reduce greenhouse gases, but they give us some guidance, and they give us some criteria, and they give us the charge to do that. So in part of my job, I've got to try to figure out how to do that, and I've been working with the waste haulers, with WAPMA, with the county, with the other local jurisdictions. But here in Loomis, we're pretty lucky because we've got a very strong, active environmental club at Del Oro High School. And these young people saw this requirement that the state was putting on us, and they want to change the environment, they want to change their world, they want to implement some of this change. And so they actually came to us and asked how could they participate in trying to find a way to do a food scrap program here in Loomis. And since we don't know how we're going to do a food scrap program, we kind of jumped at the opportunity. Anyway, these young people at Del Oro High School have really impressed me. I think some of you have met them. I think they're a really active group. I'll let them speak a little bit more about what they're doing in other programs and stuff. But tonight I want to propose that we give them $1,200 out of our solid waste fund, which we have a line item in that fund for education and for trial programs. So we do have the money. We just need to shift it over to them. So with that, I'd like to introduce the Del Oro High School Environmental Club. So, good.
All right. Hey, Britt, do you have my slides up by any chance? Do you have my slides, my Google Slides? Okay.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Okay, got it? All right. Well, I'll start off. Hello, my name is K.benedict. I'm here with my partners, Jake and Jack. And we are the leaders of the oh, here's Jake. Yep, here's Jack. We are the leaders of the Environmental Club at Del Oro High School. And you might not remember us, but we proposed our idea of a food scraps program to you guys back in September. And since then, we have gathered and worked with a number of local officials to plan out this idea and hopefully roll it out later this year. Next slide, please. So as I said, we are the leaders of the Environmental Club, and some of our initiatives that we have implemented include implementing a compost program at our school, which saves about 20 pounds of food a week from going to waste, as well as installing faucet aerators, which save thousands of gallons from being wasted, and overall just raising awareness about various environmental issues. Since the last time we spoke to you guys, we have won various competitions. In February, we won an international competition hosted by T-Mobile, where we won $10,000 in prize money. And we have also won the Caring for Our Watersheds competition for the second year in a row. On top of that, we've also won an international competition hosted by Moody's Analytics. Aside from the competitions, though, we have also been engaging the community. Earlier this year, we hosted an event at our school where we brought in a renowned climate activist. His name's Wei Tai. He works with the Climate Reality Project. And we had him speak to the community about the importance of climate change and taking action. We ended up raising over $700 and had about 200 people from the Loomis community show up. So next, I'll have Jake talk a little bit more about what we have done regarding the food scraps program in particular.
Yeah, so with this current project, we basically had to bring together a couple of players. So this includes Recology, the Town Council, the Placer County Waste Management, CalRecycle, Nortec, and the Material Recovery Facility out in Lincoln. And basically what we've been doing for over, I'd say, 4 or 5 months now is we've been holding about monthly meetings and just kind of, going over the goals and what needs to be done for this project. And so what we found out through all these meetings, the process kind of goes as such. So we're going to start with some sending about 200 households a pre-programmed questionnaire. We're hoping for 100% participation with these 200 households, but we're prepared for any number. And so then from this pre-programmed questionnaire, we're going to find the participants. So yeah, once we have our participants, they're going to be putting their food scraps in specifically marked containers instead of the trash with the gray bins. And so basically, the purpose of all this is to reduce methane emissions that will happen when food scraps break down in landfills instead of turning into compost, because when it breaks down in a landfill, it does not have access to oxygen, which in turn reduces methane, or releases methane rather. Basically once they separate those two, Recology is going to come pick up the waste. So Recology is going to come by with their big trash bins and pick up waste as usual. And then with our project, there's going to be a separate pickup crew, likely a pickup truck that's going to come by with a crew member designated just for this project, and they're going to pick up the food scraps from around that neighborhood. And then they'll take it to the Material Recovery Facility out in Lincoln, and we'll do some data collection and data analysis out there. So then I'll hand it off to Jack here for his part.
Okay, perfect. Hold on, Jack. Britt, can you please change the slide?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's okay.
I guess we would need to go up 2 slides now to the one with the kind of the mini map on it. Okay, perfect. So the basic things that the costs of the project are 3 basic things. So number 1, the biodegradable bags that would go in each resident's household with a kitchen bin. We have a quote from a person who provides the kitchen pail bins to place in the resident's house. And then also we would request to have some replacement bags that would be at the town hall to be provided for residents in the pilot study area that ran out of the biodegradable bags or lost them due to some circumstance. The whole pilot program would last about 6 weeks with weekly pickups, like Jake said, with the pickup truck coming. And we really think that Loomis can serve as a template for this pilot program to meet requirements for SB 1383, which is the new state bill that requires by 2025 to divert 75% of organics from landfills. So the data we gather with the help from the MRF and a lot of other players, such as Recology, really could help Loomis be a leader in this space for much of rural California. I think, like we mentioned to you a long time ago, Bay Area communities have similar programs, but in rural California, these programs really haven't been implemented. So I think it's a really exciting opportunity for Loomis to be an innovator in this space. So if you look at the target area map that we have on this slide here, this is over by the Loomis Sunrise Park. The blue area is the Loomis Sunrise Park. So you'd be covering streets like Angelo, Longview, Woodbury Court, Arcadia, over in that area. We estimate that there's 200 households around there, and that would be a perfect amount of households for the pilot study. And then Jake mentioned a pre-program questionnaire. We would also give them a post-program questionnaire to see if their habits regarding environmental conservation and overall participation in the program, and see if they would be willing to participate in the program going long term, which is something that Loomis will have to do in the future. With that, I think that kind of concludes our presentation. We appreciate your guys' time, and we would request that you take Britt's advice for the $1,200.
Great presentation. Do we have any questions up here? Councilmember Duncan, I noticed you brought something with you today.
Oh yeah. Hey, Jake, Jack, Kevin, how y'all doing? This is Councilman Duncan. Hey, I brought the toter. Am I on the line? This is what would be where your food scraps would go, and eventually, I believe the goal is that all just goes in your green toter. Your after this program. This is the trial program, and I think the main concern is keeping like meat and grease from getting into the green waste that would contaminate that. So I believe that's one of the reasons, correct me if I'm wrong, that we're doing this in the small toters. Eventually you'd be able just to throw stuff in the green waste, that, food waste in the green waste. So is that correct?
Yes, that's exactly correct. Right now, the MRF does not have the capabilities to take in the residential food scraps waste stream. They're working on getting permitted for that. So having this pail would be able to allow them to be placed our residential food waste stream in their pilot program study at the MRF or at the landfill, which would be really beneficial to what they're doing out there. And it would be super cool for Loomis to get in on the ground floor. Also, something you mentioned about meat and grease and things that we wouldn't want in those pails. Before we start the program next fall, before we would roll it out, we would educate. We have a number of educational materials that we would provide at the Loomis Town Hall, and we would pass those house to house for the 200 households that would be participating in the pilot program.
Yeah, so Jake's created some flyers on what to put in the food scrap bins and what not to put in there, and we'd be sure to pass those out to all the participating residents so they know exactly what to put in the food scrap bins.
And we developed those flyers with the consultation of all the players, such as Recology, the MRF staff, the town council, Britt, and everyone like that.
Jeff, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to be clear, that would be, you'd set that in your kitchen and you would load it up every week and then do what with it?
Yes, so you can keep it in your kitchen, you keep it wherever you would like to. During the, when I was using it, I just put it on the back patio and I didn't have any animals to get into it. So yes, so you do it daily, do it whenever you're cleaning your dishes and whatever's waste left over, you put it in this. And then they were mentioning the plastic bags and stuff. You don't have to, I mean, for the pilot program, until you go to the green waste, you do have to have the bags. I think for the purpose of seeing that people aren't just putting other items in there, the same way we don't put batteries in with our regular garbage and all. So there's those items that you can't, like meat and grease. And at the end of the week, you'd put it out like on the curb in a bag.
In a bag, okay.
So that when that truck comes around, and eventually, like I say, we're going to get away from the truck. This is for the purpose of the, pilot program at this time.
So the bag would sit next to the garbage can out in the front.
The bag would act like a liner for the pail.
Yeah, but you would set that bag on the curb next to your trash can.
Yeah, and the Recology, they know what houses are participating. They would be looking for those houses at that time. So.
And that's the
kitchen pails, if I may interject, do have an odor sealing lock, which is supposed to keep out odors. All of us have tried the kitchen pails in our own kitchens, and the odors have been reduced with the odor locking seal. So that's a feature that comes with the kitchen pail. But like Councilmember Duncan said, you could also keep it outside if you don't have any animals to get into it.
Any other questions from council members? Let's open it up for public comment.
Yeah, so we have two public comments so far. The first is from Sonia Coupler. Would the extra pickup truck coming to pick up the food waste be an electric vehicle? Would Del Oro Environmental Club be contributing any monies toward the trial program? And who pays for the food waste toters?
So first of all, the truck that'll be picking it up won't be an electric truck. The Recology has volunteered a truck and a driver to drive around and pick these up during the trial program. Let's see, what was the other?
Like a garbage truck? Or like
No, just F-150. We're not anticipating more than that for this neighborhood, for this trial program. Eventually, Recology is going to have to figure out a whole trucking system, how this all gets incorporated. I mean, I know this meeting's going kind of long, but I'm really super impressed with these young people at Del Oro High School. They've done an amazing job of coordinating between the county, the state, the hauler, the waste facility, learning and understanding how all of these people are meshing. And the waste facility didn't have a program to deal with food scraps. They worked with them to try to figure that out. They researched all of the different liners, the different bags, which ones can be broken down. They researched all the pails. They researched the funding for all of this. They raised money for it. So between the money that they raised and the money that they received from the town, that will pay for the trial program. The rest of the legwork, creating the brochures, creating all of the documents and the surveys and all of that is going to be done by the volunteers from Del Oro.
Another question from David Ring, statement and a question. Congratulations to the Del Oro Environmental Group for all your accomplishments. Keep up the good work. Is there any way that we can put a stipulation on the funding increase for Recology to be based on a commitment from them to support this food scraps program after this trial ends, assuming that it is successful?
In one of our new updates to our contract with Recology, we will definitely have to include something for this food scraps programs, but we have to figure out what that's going to be. So this will help us inform those changes to the contract when it comes up in the future.
And this is going to happen. Eventually, they're going to have to figure out how to do this anyway.
Well, like they were saying a minute ago, the state's requiring that we do something about food scraps in the waste stream. What it is, they're not telling us what to do. They're saying figure it out, and that's what we're doing.
So with the help of the Del Oro Environmental Club, we're going to be ahead of the game. Absolutely. As opposed to the tail on the dog. So,
okay.
Little Loomis, right?
Is there any other public comment?
Question for Sonia Coupler. Will this eventually cause our garbage bill to increase?
I don't anticipate a significant increase, but dealing with food scraps is going to be an additional cost when it's taken town-wide. I don't know what those programs are going to be like, so I can't anticipate what the cost is going to be.
It's also a state mandate eventually that we need to do this. So,
no, that's not what you're saying. Is that's not necessarily what you've said. You said that we have to do something, not this necessarily.
Right.
So this is a pilot program not designed to implement state law. It sounds like the state's pretty ambiguous about what they want. So I've heard that statement multiple times that we're going to have to do this. That's not necessarily true. Based on previous comments you've made.
Right.
Something has to be done. Right. Not necessarily this though, right?
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other public comment? Or
I just want to say, I think what the ultimate goal is that the food scraps will go into the green waste. What Recology or how'd you put it, WAPMA?
Yeah, WAPMA.
What their concern is people putting things into the green waste that they can't make money off because they use the green waste to make the mulch to sell. So they don't want people putting, just like they don't want people putting batteries and fluorescent lights in the garbage cans and stuff.
Yep.
So I think the program is designed to do is to educate people and, as being a test pilot situation that they can learn from mistakes. Just like our e-waste program right now, where do you put your batteries? It's one of those things, people throw batteries in where they're not supposed to put them. Who has to deal with it? They have to deal with it at the other end to get it out. So that is a cost, that they have to deal with. So in a perfect world, which we don't live in, but in a perfect world, people would put the trash where they're supposed to put the trash, So that's the whole purpose, I think. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, if that's not...
Councilmember Newman is exactly correct. When we're talking about introducing residential food scraps into the system, I know that Mayor Jen Clark-Kretz knows this already, that all commercial businesses right now in Loomis and in Placer County have to put their food scraps in a collection bin to be composted at the landfill already. And so State Bill 1383 provides and requires the state, requires towns eventually to come up with a program to divert that residential food scraps out of the landfill. Because like Jake was talking about, when those food scraps are placed in an anaerobic environment without oxygen, they release dangerous greenhouse gases such as methane, which is contributing to warming right now. So that's something to consider. And it's definitely something that the town of Loomis could be a total pioneer on. And I think that would be super exciting.
any other public comment? While we're waiting for that, I just have to say that I've had the opportunity to meet with these young people with this project, and it is an incredible amount of work that they have done, and I'm so impressed by their resolve and work on it, and congratulations to you guys, really, for sure. And to coin, one of you said it's going to be super cool. I think it is going to be super cool, and I am also super excited for you guys, depending on how we vote here. And is there any other public comment?
I don't see anything else.
Okay.
Can I add something really quickly, though?
Sure.
We actually did this in Colma when I was a city manager there. This food scrap program, same exact thing, and the pails look exactly the same. And the one thing that made that work, I think we ended up having like a 75% participation rate. The town gave everybody everything, so you got all the bags for free, you got the pails for free. There was an increased cost, but it was pretty minimal. The one thing that made it work, though, was, and Jack talked about this, is the education component and making sure that people understand what they're supposed to be doing. And so, Jack talked about that and mentioned that. That's really going to be critical to make sure this thing works. So, just for what it's worth.
Okay, council. Do I have any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the grant of $1,200 for the Del Oro High School Environmental Club's trial residential food scrap program.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmembers Duncan?
Aye.
Morales?
Aye.
Baker?
Aye.
Underko? Aye. Mayor Clark-Kretz?
Aye. Motion passes. Congratulations. All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your time.
Let's move to council committee reports. Do we have any committee reports this evening? Nothing of substance. Okay. All right. Well, with that said, we should adjourn our meeting tonight. We wish you all the best. Stay healthy and stay safe. Meeting adjourned.